If you've been around for a while, then you know how much I care about financial freedom for all. One thing that often gets in the way of that is debt. That's why I'm happy to announce that I've partnered with an amazing organization called Juno. Juno helps you get lower interest rates by using the power of group negotiation. It is a completely free resource that you can use to secure lower interest rates on new and existing student loans. Head to the link in the episode show notes to find out more. This is the Dreamers Podcast, episode 11, with digital marketing expert Kathleen Celmins. Today is April 5th, 2021.
I think the real thing that most people miss is where the sales actually happen. Because the point of an opt-in is to get somebody to give you their email address. And so it's up to you, the creator, to really nurture that relationship, to reiterate all the things that were in your opt-in, and to show people a clear way to move forward.
This episode is brought to you by Dream of Legacy. Check out dreamoflegacy.com for resources to assist you on your journey to financial independence.
Hello, world. Welcome to the Dreamers Podcast. I am Stephanie Anne-Lyse, also known as Anne-Lyse Wealth. I am a financial coach and an author. I self-published my first book, Dream of Legacy, a guide to help dreamers reach financial independence and build generational wealth. In this podcast, I'll have conversations with experts and thought leaders who dare to follow their dreams. You'll hear about their journey and their money stories. I hope it inspires you, dreamers out there, to live life on your own terms.
Come on, dreamers, let's change the world!
Welcome to the Dreamers Podcast. I'm your host, Anne-Lyse Wealth. I'm so glad you decided to join me for today's episode of the Dreamers Podcast with Kathleen Celmins. Kathleen Celmins is the CEO and co-founder of Amplify Now, which is a video-first content marketing agency. But prior to becoming a digital marketing expert, Kathleen woke up at 25 years old with $25,000 of credit card debt at 25% interest rate. So she started a personal finance blog called Frugal Portland to document her journey getting out of debt. In the process, she became a personal finance influencer, and she helped one of the very popular personal finance podcasts become profitable. Over time, Kathleen realized that she was much more passionate about marketing, so she launched a company. In today's episode, we talk about all of that. Kathleen talks about her journey getting out of debt, pivoting through her career, and she shares some of her marketing expertise to help businesses attract customers online. Before we get into this episode, I would appreciate if you would go into Apple Podcasts right now, rate and review the podcast to help more dreamers discover the Dreamers Podcast. All right, here's Kathleen Celmins. Kathleen Celmins, welcome to the Dreamers Podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so glad to have you today. I can't wait to learn more about your story and for you to share some of your marketing tips with our listeners.
Yeah. I mean, where do we want to start, right?
Can you tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Sure. I am the CEO and co-founder of Amplified Now, a video-first content marketing agency. We help experts and consultants, authors, amplify their message and their platform by teaching them how to use video to do their content marketing because it's faster and easier and it's connection that scales. Back in the recession in 2009, I started doing marketing for people who I could find like on Craigslist. And it was mainly because no one else was hiring. I ended up getting a sales job at a software company and sort of left that behind. And then started my journey into the wide world of interneting by waking up one day in 2011 with a mountain of credit card debt and thinking, I have to get my stuff together. I need to get out of debt. So I started a blog in late 2011 about personal finance and blogged my way out of debt and made a ton of friends in the personal finance space. Ended up later selling my website. In 2015, I joined forces with Joe Saul-Sehy of Stacking Benjamins, and we combined forces. He is a really great stage presence, and I learned how to monetize the podcast. And so that was really fun for me. And we were business partners for about 3 years. And in 2018, I realized I didn't have as much interest in personal finance as I once did, and that I was more interested in helping people who were changing people's lives in the personal finance world make more money. And so I sold my shares back to my business partners and started a marketing company in 2018.
It's funny how the path is often not linear, right? So you started this personal finance blog, and it really was by accident that you started this career in a personal finance space?
Absolutely. Yeah. In 2021, when we're recording this, I can make the path seem linear, but only in retrospect. There was no way I would have known where it would have led the day that I woke up on my 30th birthday thinking, I am too smart to be in this much credit card debt. I got to get out of it somehow. Now here we are 9 years later.
Do you mind sharing kind of like how much debt you were dealing with and how you got out of it?
Yeah, I had written a check on my credit card. So those of you listening at home, don't do that. If you don't have the money, don't use the checks. To someone who now, with the benefit of hindsight, it just sounds so stupid. But at the time, it didn't seem stupid. But I was writing a check to someone who had like some sort of no-fail investment plan, and spoiler alert, it failed. So this $20,000 I had written to this person disappeared, as did that person. Never heard from them again. And, I was like chipping away at it. But when I sort of woke up and realized I needed to get out of it, I had $25,000 in credit card debt and was paying 25% interest on it. So, you don't have to be a math wizard to know that unless you change your life very, very much and double down on paying that off, no matter what you do, your debt increases instead of decreasing. And so how I got out of it was simply by, well, first of all, I blogged. I did net worth updates. I was so excited to get to a zero net worth and just kept chipping away at it. I remember I didn't spend any money. I didn't go anywhere. I put all of my money, every extra, if I found $5 on the street, I put $5 on my debt slowly and then all at once, basically paid it off.
It's quite an expensive lesson, but I think that maybe that was your cost of entry into the personal finance space.
Right? I had a friend who bought a condo at the top of the market and was underwater for years. And so that's what I think of is like, that's my real estate. Even though I never had a condo that I was underwater on, it was the same sort of thing where lots of people lost a lot of money in 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008.
Yeah, I have a real estate nightmare experience, and I like to see it as a crash course on real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think sometimes in life we just have to pay the price to learn the lesson.
Exactly.
You started this blog, and then you went on and partnered to start Stacking Benjamins. Is that it?
Yeah, well, it had started before, but I made it profitable. So helped monetize the podcast.
So now I'm sure listeners are trying to connect the dots here. How did you go from there to marketing?
The way we monetized was not only through ad networks, but through marketing. And so we were doing courses and collecting email addresses and doing all that stuff behind the scenes that was really, really fun to me. And I think it's common when you come into the personal finance world through debt to not want to talk about it anymore. For me, it was a growth point, right? I am not ashamed of my debt. I'm not ashamed of what happened or how I got out of it. But I also didn't want to keep talking about it, didn't want to keep revisiting it. And my finances were more boring after a certain point. And so I never thought that the money stuff was all that fun to talk about. And I got to a point where I thought that the personal finance space was all about spend less, earn more, invest the difference. And those were all the three stories that kept getting retold. And I wanted to do more like marketing, nerding out things, landing pages and thank you pages and webinars and figuring out how to drive revenue for other people who were, again, still are super passionately changing the lives of the people around them in a way that I never had the enthusiasm for, because I got into personal finance selfishly, not really to change anybody's life but my own, and never really connected with personal finance on that level. But helping other people, helping the people that don't like marketing and don't like sales, but do have a big passion for changing people's lives, helping those people make better income is the thing that lights me up.
Well, it's really great that you listened to that voice in your head, even though you were already doing pretty good in the personal finance space, and actually followed what it is that made you light up, like you said. So I think, sometimes people want to pivot, but they don't know how. Can you talk a little bit about the steps that you took?
It's so hard. And especially people who are listening to this who know Stacking Benjamins know that it's a pretty big platform, and it's only gotten bigger since I left. And so sometimes, even now, 2.5 years later, I think, gosh, I left that huge platform, and starting from scratch is hard and pivoting is hard. And the thing that I think about often, the metamorphosis that a caterpillar goes through to become a butterfly, that transformation process has to be painful and hard, but worth it. So I don't have like a nice, easy 3-step process. But if you're feeling like you want to pivot, if you're feeling like something's out of alignment, think about what does light you up and don't diminish it. So for me, it was like, why? Like, that's so dorky that rearranging pixels on a website or creating a landing page or redoing somebody's website, those are the things that light me up. It feels so vapid, but I think that's imposter syndrome telling you not to listen to your calling. And if I can realize what marketing is, which is, again, it's just an easy way to help people elevate their message and help more people, then it's not as shallow or meaningless as the devil on my shoulder might make it sound.
If you've been around for a while, then you know how much I care about financial freedom for all. One thing that often gets in the way of that is debt. That's why I'm happy to announce that I've partnered with an amazing organization called Juno. Juno helps you get lower interest rates by using the power of group negotiation. It is a completely free resource that you can use to secure lower interest rates on new and existing student loans. Head to the link in the episode show notes to find out more. Sunday, Skincare Day, is one of the ways I keep my sanity in these crazy times. Jumino is an all-natural, Black-owned skincare brand carefully handcrafted by parents who could not find the proper care solutions to address their family skin problems. All Jumino products are made of organic and high-quality ingredients, meticulously chosen to give your skin the smooth results and the glow it deserves.
So you mentioned that the transition was not smooth, and I'm actually in the transition phase right now, so I can definitely relate to that. So today you are a digital marketing expert. And one of the things that you are known for is you kind of are a webinar queen. This past year with COVID and things moving online,
webinars are even more popular. So can you talk a little bit about what you do in the webinar space and what webinars can do to help grow an online business?
Sure. I like to use a fishing analogy, although it kind of falls apart once we get too far into it. But in terms of marketing, there are two pieces to it. There's content marketing and there's the digital marketing. And the content marketing is the way in which you catch the fish. And the digital marketing is what you do with the fish once you've caught them. Taking that analogy only to the part where you're building something to catch those leads, and then you're kindly turning them into dinner. I don't know. But so a lot of people have one piece and not the other. And one of the best ways to do digital marketing is to create an opt-in. A webinar is a good one, a workshop or a masterclass. People tend to not like the word webinar because it's a little bit sleazy with the associations. And that's through no fault of the people who are considering webinars today. But for some reason, getting people to sign up for a webinar, even today, everybody who signs up for a webinar knows there's a pitch at the end. So you're getting people who are ready to hear your pitch, not necessarily ready to buy from you, but they're ready to hear your pitch in a webinar much more than they are if you had a PDF checklist of 10 things you need or whatever. If you think about webinars in terms of like educating people, you indoctrinate them into what the problem is that they have, that your solution, your service, your product or consultation can solve, and then you can go a long way through the sales funnel process in order to get somebody to say, okay, yeah, I might be interested in that. And webinars are good, but also just creating a new opt-in every quarter is a really good way to keep things fresh and keep people in your system, keep teaching them. You know, the basis of content marketing is to give away 80% of what you know, give away the what and the why, and then charge for the how. And so the more things you can give away, which is whether that's free on your blog or gated through a form, the better. And we used to do a lot more webinars, and they're still a great way to go, but they do ask for a lot from the creator. So even if you hire a company to create a webinar for you, you don't want someone else to be delivering that content. You want to have your voice in your tone delivering the message of your webinar. So when people say they don't want to do a webinar, I don't fight them as hard today as I used to.
How much time does it require to create a webinar?
It depends. It really depends, because the way we do it, we set up a brainstorming session, then we create your slides, then we go back and forth until they're the way you want them, and then you deliver it. But then once you have your slide deck, you're only like halfway done. Whereas again, like if you were to create a PDF, you are all the way done once you're done with the PDF. But then you have to figure out like the right day of the week. You need to set up time for prep. You need to cross your fingers and your toes and hope that Zoom webinar comes through for you, even though everybody's on Zoom right now. And so it takes more, like less time than you think it does, but as much headspace as you think it does.
So you mentioned that you don't fight your clients anymore if they don't want to do a webinar. What's a good alternative to also bring about potential clients and close on sales?
I think instead of answering that directly, I think the real thing that most people miss is where the sales actually happen, or really like what the point of the opt-in is altogether. So I see sometimes in follow-up emails, people asking whether somebody watched the whole thing. Well, that doesn't matter, because the point of an opt-in is to get somebody to give you their email address. And so it's up to you, the creator, to really nurture that relationship to reiterate all the things that were in your opt-in and to show people a clear way to move forward. And so whether you're creating a quiz or an ebook or a PDF checklist or a spreadsheet or whatever it is, no matter what you're creating, make sure that you're also following up with way more than one email.
Okay. You mentioned earlier that there are two pieces to marketing, right? There's the part where you create the content and then the other part where you actually catch the fish.
Yes.
So what are some other ways that you can catch a fish?
When you're doing the content marketing, you always want to end every piece of content that you have with a call to action. And that call to action changes depending on where you have your content. So on Instagram, your call to action is not download my thing because their Instagram has, rules about links. On your blog, it's your two calls to action are either download my thing or book a call. My thing changes every quarter when you create new opt-ins. And in making sure that you're creating conversion-oriented content is the way to get more fish into your net.
Great tips. Great tips. You are a mom now, right?
I am.
And how many kids do you have?
I have 2 kids under 5. So send coffee.
So, can you take us back to your childhood? What type of financial education did you receive? And what are some of the things you do or plan to do to teach your kids about money?
That's such an interesting question. I don't remember hearing much about money as a child. I do remember an offhand comment when I saw a really cool car that my dad said when I was a kid, that he said, "Marry well if you want a car like that." And I thought, wait a minute. Why? Why do I have to marry well in order to, I think the car was like a Toyota too. So young Kathleen really had big dreams when it came to cars. But we're already talking a little bit about money. My oldest daughter is 4.5 as of this recording. So what she's learning are trade-offs right now. So if you do this, it means you can't do that. Is that what you want to do? And so, the little basic things, because the rest of it is actually kind of above her understanding at this point. We did, at Christmas time, we went and got one of the tags off the Salvation Army's tree and talked about why some kids don't have as much and why their parents can't just go buy the stuff if it's not at home. And so like those little things. But one of the big things that we are teaching, not just during the pandemic, but we're teaching our children how they can sort of chart their own way in terms of becoming their own bosses and carving out work that makes sense for them. And I have been working at home forever. I will continue to work from home even when people go back. So showing my kids sort of a different way, and they're seeing a lot more of me at work than I ever did as a kid.
It's so important. Those little things that you mentioned, they go a long way. Even just the basic concepts of money and trade-offs, and that we can teach our kids. And then as they grow, teaching them more. We don't realize it, but it'll go a long way. I like what you said about teaching them that they can create their own path. I feel like it's so important because a lot of us, we grow up and society kind of teaches us to fit in this box. And if you can teach them early that they can figure things out and create whatever they want to create and be what they want to be, then you're saving them a few years of moving in a direction that's not necessarily theirs, but that's what society wanted them to do.
Yeah, one of the things I really don't like is the question of what do you want to be when you grow up?
Ooh, I love that.
As if we aren't anything until we grow up. What do you mean be when I grow up? Our children are already something. They don't have to change into anything else once they grow. They just need to learn sort of the different options. And I really wish that I had been asked, like, how do you want to spend your days? What does an office look like to you? Your answers change depending on what it is you want. My kids right now are still like in the stage where they think they might be princess ballerina firefighters, thinking like a little bit more about like, what does your workplace look like? Do you have an office? Do you sit down? Patience? Like, what is it how do you feel like you want to spend your days? And those are exciting conversations that are still too soon right now.
It's so funny because I can't remember where I read that, but it was actually along the same lines. And it said you shouldn't ask your kids or kids in general what they want to do when they grow up, because life is a process where you constantly evolve. So you don't want to limit them into thinking that they're just going to be this one thing. Find a way to just ask them what their interests are, like you said, and what they want to do next. Knowing that they have the flexibility, just like you did, right? You started in marketing, went into personal finance, went back to your passion. And we want them to grow up knowing that they can do all those things.
Mm-hmm. And life is so long. Like, it's a lot of pressure to ask a teenager what they want to do for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. So let's do some rapid fire questions, if you don't mind.
Oh, that sounds fun.
So what's a book that you read that changed your perspective on life?
I'm reading one right now called Vibrate Higher Daily. Live Your Power by Layla Delia. I'm only halfway through it, but it's really, really impactful. It's about how your vibrations matter, and it's written in a pretty straightforward and not so woo-woo way that appeals to my skeptic's brain.
Nice. What's one thing about money you wish you could tell your younger self?
Other than don't write checks on your credit card?
I think that's a good one.
I think let's go with that one.
The best investment in yourself you ever made?
Hiring a coach.
Fill in the blanks in 3 words or less. Money to me is
a necessary tool.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Kindness, generosity.
Thank you so much, Kathleen, for being on the podcast. Can you tell our listeners where to find you if they want to find out more about you and all the great things that you're doing?
Absolutely. Thanks, Anne-Lyse. I am at amplifiednow.com. I have a free course if you want to get started with video marketing, but you aren't really sure how to even go about it. It's at amplifiednow.com/course. And it's quick. It's 6-minute videos that will take you down idea line for getting started there. I am also on Instagram at Kathleen Celmins and Twitter at Kathleen Celmins. If you're listening to this in the car, you might want to look at the transcript to see how that's spelled.
Yes, I'll make sure to add all of that to the show notes.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.
All right, everybody. That was Kathleen Celmins. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Next week on the podcast, we have branding powerhouse, Latoya Bond. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Dreamers Podcast. You can find today's show notes and all of the links mentioned during the episode at dreamoflegacy.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, here's what you can do to support me and help more dreamers discover the podcast. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. I read every single review and I'll select one review to read on the podcast every month. Subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Share the podcast with your family, friends, and coworkers. And if you really enjoyed today's episode, tag me on Instagram at thedreamers.podcast and let me know what you liked about it. All right, dreamers, that's it for today. I will see you back here next week for another episode of the Dreamers Podcast.
Okay, dreamers, time to build this legacy.
This podcast is for general information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax, legal, financial planning, insurance, accounting, investment, or any other kind of professional advice or services. Please consult with an appropriate tax, financial, or legal professional to receive appropriate advice based on your situation.
Sunday, Skincare Day, is one of the ways I keep my sanity in these crazy times. Jumino is an all-natural, Black-owned skincare brand carefully handcrafted by parents who could not find the proper care solutions to address their family skin problems. All Jumino products are made of organic and high-quality ingredients, meticulously chosen to give your skin the smooth results and the glow it deserves.